Welcome to Fearbound Stories. Please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now let's begin. She had taken dozens of cleaning jobs in her life, but none as unsettling as the Carsons' mansion. It stood at the very edge of town, half hidden by tall black pines, its windows clouded like cataracts, and its paint worn pale by the years. To most, it was the kind of house you crossed the street to avoid, but for Amelia, desperate for work after months of unemployment, it was a blessing. The Carsons were polite, too polite. The old couple greeted her with cold smiles, their eyes strangely distant, as if they were seeing through her rather than looking at her. "You'll find everything already in order," Mrs. Carson said. "Just make sure it stays that way." That was odd. It was spotless. Not a speck of dust on the furniture, not a cobweb in the corners. Still, Amelia took her feather duster and began her routine, humming softly to fill the silence. But there was something wrong with the silence itself. In most houses, you could hear life, pipes humming, clocks ticking, floors creaking. In this one, there was nothing. No wind outside, no birds, not even the hum of the refrigerator. Just her breathing. On her third day, she started noticing things out of place. The broom she'd left propped in the hallway had moved. The water bucket she'd left empty was suddenly full. A mirror she'd polished that morning already gleamed like new when she came back in the afternoon. And the footprints, small, bare footprints, leading from the kitchen into the study, the one locked room she had been told never to enter. When she asked Mr. Carson about it, he smiled faintly. "Oh, don't worry about that," he said. "This house likes to keep itself clean. Just be thankful." Then he handed her pay for the week and asked her to come earlier on Monday. That night, Amelia lay awake replaying his words. The house likes to keep itself clean. What did that even mean? By the next morning, curiosity won. She arrived before sunrise and went straight to the study. The door was slightly open this time. Inside, the smell hit her first. Sharp bleach mixed with something faintly metallic. There was only one chair in the center of the room, facing a large, dust-covered mirror. The carpet was uneven beneath her shoes, and when she looked down, she noticed dark stains beneath the fabric, stains that bled upward, as if from underneath the floorboards. She crouched, trembling, and pulled up a corner of the rug. Something gleamed. A handle, a trapdoor. The moment she touched it, a whisper echoed in her ear. Soft, breathy, feminine. "Don't disturb me." She froze, turned, but saw no one. Her heart thudded as the mirror across the room flickered, not reflecting her, but showing something else. A figure, another woman, wearing a maid's uniform identical to hers, mopping the same floor. Except this maid's eyes were hollow sockets and her hand was dripping red. The mirror went black. Amelia stumbled out of the study, slamming the door behind her, her breath ragged. She ran to her car and didn't look back. That night, she told herself she was done. But at 2 a.m., her phone buzzed. A known number. "You missed a spot." The next morning, she returned to collect her things from the agency, only to find out the Carsons had already paid her, not just for the week, but for every night since. They'd written a note, too. "Thank you, Amelia. The house is spotless again. It's so nice of you to keep coming after hours." But she hadn't. Still, her mop was gone from her car, and that night, when she looked out her apartment window, she saw headlights moving up the lonely road toward the Carsons. Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. The house waited for her at the end of a long dirt road, hidden behind crooked birch trees that scraped against the roof like fingers. Sarah had never seen a home so large, or so quiet. When she stepped out of the taxi, even the driver refused to wait. "That place gives me the shivers," he muttered, speeding away. She stood before a tall iron gate and the sign nailed to it in flaking paint, "The Abernathy House." It looked abandoned from a distance, but as she approached, a light flickered behind an upstairs curtain, brief, as though someone had been watching her and quickly stepped back. She was only 24, broke, and desperate. The agency had promised steady work, a private room, and generous pay. Just some old money folks needing help around the house, they'd said. Easy work, good people. But they hadn't mentioned the location or the strange condition in the ad. Must be comfortable working nights. An elderly woman with sharp eyes opened the door before Sarah could knock. "You must be the maid." Her voice was firm, not unkind, but carried the weight of authority. "Come in. I'm Mrs. Abernathy. My husband is upstairs. He doesn't like visitors, so please keep your work quiet." She paused, studying Sarah. "You'll sleep in the nanny's quarters, end of the East Hall." I'm not a nanny," Sarah stammered. Mrs. Abernathy smiled thinly. "No, but the room remembers one." The mansion smelled of wax and lavender polish. Portraits stared down from every wall. The same couple painted over decades, never aging. Dust clung to the chandeliers, though every surface gleamed. It felt like a museum preserved for ghosts. Her room was small, with lace curtains, a brass bed, and a wooden cradle in the corner, empty but rocking ever so slightly. A plaque on the door read "The Nanny's Room." She thought of asking about it again, but Mrs. Abernathy had already vanished down the corridor. The first few days passed quietly. Sarah rose early, cooked breakfast, dusted, polished, and washed linens. The Abernathys ate little, spoke less, and never left the house. By the third evening, she began noticing a pattern. At exactly midnight, the air grew colder, the fire in the hearth dimmed, and faintly, from somewhere above, came the sound of a lullaby. Soft, lilting, heart-achingly familiar. At first, she thought it was a radio left on, but the tune was old, too old. One night, she followed it up the servants' stairs, barefoot, carrying a candle. The top floor had been sealed off. Dust thick as velvet blanketed the carpet, and every door was shut, except one. From inside that room, the lullaby flowed clear as water. She pushed the door open. It was a nursery, preserved perfectly as though waiting for its owner to return. A rocking chair faced the window, moving gently though the air was still. The cradle swayed, creaking softly. Toys lay scattered in careful disarray. A doll with one eye missing, wooden blocks spelling Emily, and a small stuffed bear, its fur matted dark. When Sarah stepped forward, the candle flickered. The walls, painted with clouds and birds, seemed to ripple like a reflection in water. Then she saw the shadow, small, child-sized, pass across the wall behind her. She turned sharply. Nothing. She whispered into the dark, "Is someone here?" The cradle stopped, and a tiny voice answered, close enough to feel the breath of it. "You're late for my story." The candle went out. She woke in her own bed. Morning sunlight poured through the window. A dream, she told herself, just a nightmare from exhaustion. But the soles of her feet were gray with dust. When she went to clean the upper hall later that day, Mrs. Abernathy appeared suddenly, blocking her path. "That floor is closed," the old woman said sharply. "I heard something last night," Sarah said. "A child." Mrs. Abernathy's expression changed, a quick flicker of pain. "You heard nothing. You will stay out of that room. Understood?" Her voice broke slightly. "She doesn't like strangers." For days afterward, Sarah avoided the stairs. Yet the lullaby returned each night, growing louder, sweeter, like a mother singing through tears. Then came the crying. Soft at first, then wailing, heart-rending, echoing through the vents until dawn. One night, Sarah snapped. She stormed into the hallway shouting, "Enough!" The sound stopped instantly. Then, from the darkness of her room, came a small knock from inside the cradle. She didn't move until sunrise. The next morning, she found a tiny handprint on her vanity mirror, the size of a toddler's, smeared in something red. She marched to Mrs. Abernathy's door, demanding answers. "Who's Emily?" she asked, the woman's face drained of color. She gestured for Sarah to sit. "Our daughter," she said quietly. "She died when she was 4. Pneumonia. The nurse who looked after her blamed herself, hung herself in that very room." The cradle never stopped rocking after that. Mrs. Abernathy looked at her with hollow eyes. "We don't speak of it. The house remembers, and remembering keeps her awake." That night, Sarah tried to leave. Her bag was packed, her coat on, her mind made up. But when she opened her bedroom door, the hallway stretched longer than before, impossibly long, the far end swallowed in darkness. A faint light glowed beneath the nursery door, and the voice, small, innocent, desperate, called again. "Don't leave me alone." Her body moved against her will, drawn forward. The door creaked open on its own, revealing the nursery bathed in moonlight. The cradle was still, the rocking chair empty. Then slowly something sat down in it. The wood creaked. The chair began to rock. A pale figure appeared in the reflection of the window, a woman in an old maid's uniform, rope burns dark around her neck, eyes sunken but gentle. She smiled at Sarah. And from the cradle came a whisper. "Thank you for coming back, Nanny." The candle went out. When the Abernathys entered the room the next morning, the bed was neatly made, the maid's suitcase untouched. But the cradle rocked by itself, and on the brass plate of the door, the engraved name had changed. It no longer said Nanny's room. It said Sarah. And if you walk past the Abernathy house on a still winter night, you can hear a lullaby drifting through the upper windows, a woman's voice humming softly, endlessly, to the child that never grew up. Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Clara never believed in curses, not ghosts, not spirits, not anything that couldn't be cleaned away with soap and determination. She was a housekeeper by trade, a perfectionist by nature, and though life hadn't been kind, she prided herself on leaving every place brighter than she found it. So when she received a letter, yes, a real paper letter, offering employment at the Holloway estate on the coast, she didn't hesitate. Quiet property, long-term maintenance, room provided. The pay was more than generous. The job sounded simple. And the seaside air, she thought, might finally quiet the noise inside her head. The grief she carried since her sister's death last winter. She arrived on a mist-shrouded afternoon. The Holloway mansion rose from the cliffs like something the ocean itself had rejected. Vast, gray, and full of windows that seemed too dark to reflect the sky. Mrs. Holloway, a frail woman with an elegant stiffness, greeted her at the door. "You'll find the work straightforward," she said. "Each room must remain immaculate, especially the mirrors." Clara smiled politely. "Mirrors are easy." The woman's face didn't change. "We'll see." The house felt alive with its own silence. Every corridor gleamed, every carpet seemed freshly beaten, but there was a faint scent under the polish, sea salt and something metallic. And there were mirrors, dozens. Hall mirrors, ceiling mirrors, vanity mirrors, hand mirrors, old gilt-framed pieces that distorted slightly at the edges. No matter where she stood, she could see herself from several angles at once. At first she found it amusing. "How vain these people must be," she whispered. until she noticed that sometimes she wasn't alone in them. The first time it happened, she was dusting the East Hall, the longest corridor in the house with 12 mirrors lining each side. As she wiped the 10th mirror, her reflection hesitated a second after she did. Just a heartbeat's delay. She blinked, frowned, and tested it again, raising her hand quickly, then slowly. The reflection mimicked her, but not perfectly. It was subtle. A twitch too soon, a blink too late. She laughed nervously. It's the lighting, she told herself. Old glass plays tricks. But when she turned away, she could feel it, the prickling certainty of being watched. That night, as the waves crashed below the cliffs, Clara wandered the halls before bed. The mirrors seemed darker after sunset, their glass deep and endless like pools of still water. She stopped by one near the parlor and touched it lightly. The surface felt warm. In the faint reflection, she saw someone behind her, a shadow of a woman standing just over her shoulder. She spun around, no one. When she looked back, the mirror was empty. The dreams began soon after. Every night she found herself walking through a maze of mirrors, hundreds of them stretching forever. Each reflected a version of her, all moving in perfect unison until one, always one, stopped. Its mouth opened, and from it came a whisper like a breath across glass. "Let me out." She'd wake with that phrase in her ears, heart hammering, the taste of metal on her tongue. By the third week, the reflections had grown bolder. When she entered a room, she'd see her reflection already waiting, standing still, as if it had been there for hours. Once, while polishing a mirror near the grand staircase, she saw her double turn its head toward her before she moved. Another time, she leaned in close to inspect a streak and the image smiled, though she hadn't. Her rag dropped from her trembling hand. "Stop it," she whispered to the glass. The reflection only kept smiling. She told Mrs. Halloway what she'd seen. The woman listened quietly, eyes unreadable. "There's history here," she said finally. "The house belonged to my husband's family. The mirrors were his mother's obsession. She believed they kept her beauty young, that if you loved your reflection enough, it would one day love you back." Mrs. Halloway paused. When she died, the mirrors were covered, but after a time they uncovered themselves. Clara laughed uneasily. "That's impossible." Mrs. Halloway gave her a sad smile. "Nothing is impossible here, just keep them clean." That evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Clara entered the east wing again. She didn't want to, but the mirrors there were always fogging over with strange shapes, almost like fingerprints. She wiped one. Behind her reflection, another woman's face emerged, pale, sunken, identical except for the eyes. The other Clara's eyes were black. "Who are you?" Clara whispered. The image mouthed something, 3 words she couldn't hear. Then faintly she understood. "You're not real." The lantern flickered. The reflection moved first, slamming both palms against the glass. Cracks spidered outward like veins of frost. Clara stumbled back, heart pounding, and then the mirror went still again. Flawless, untouched. She stopped sleeping after that. When dawn came, she'd find footprints in the dust leading from mirror to mirror, bare feet, matching her size. Her cleaning cloths went missing, then returned neatly folded by her bed. Once, she caught her reflection whispering in the edge of her vision, lips moving soundlessly. She pressed her ear close to the glass and heard breathing. Not her own. On the 7th night, she couldn't take it anymore. She packed her bag and tried to leave. But when she opened the front door, the ocean wind slammed it shut again, so violently the house seemed to shake. Every mirror in the hall vibrated. And then, softly, one after another, her reflection stepped backward out of view. all of them retreating into darkness. When Mrs. Halloway returned from the city 2 days later, she found the mansion spotless. Every surface shone, but the east wing door was locked from the inside. Through the keyhole, she saw something glint, the edge of a mirror, polished so bright it reflected light like water. She called for Clara, no answer. When she peered into the glass, she saw a figure on the other side, smiling faintly. The uniform was clean, the hair neat, the eyes hollow. Mrs. Halloway whispered, "Thank you, Clara." The figure mouthed the same words back. Now, when new maids are hired, they are told the same warning. Never clean the east wing after dark. And yet every morning the mirrors there are spotless. If you look close, you can see fingerprints on the inside. And sometimes, when the house is quiet, a soft voice hums behind the glass, steady, rhythmic, almost content, as though someone on the other side is still working. The house is always immaculate, because the reflection never stops cleaning. Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Elena Alvarez had always been good at her job. For 15 years, she'd cleaned other people's messes, restored their order, and left without leaving a trace of herself behind. She took quiet pride in it. The rhythm of scrubbing floors, folding sheets, the small satisfaction of perfection. So when she was offered a live-in housekeeping position at the Brookfield estate, a 2-story modern home perched at the edge of a fog-covered hill, she accepted without hesitation. The pay was unusually high. The owner, Mr. Danvers, explained that his wife had recently passed away in an accident, and his teenage daughter, Lily, needed help maintaining the house. Elena smiled kindly. "I understand, sir. I'll take care of everything." He paused before replying, "Just don't go into the basement at night." She assumed he meant it for safety. Old wiring, maybe damp floors. She nodded. But as the days passed, she learned that the warning had nothing to do with safety. Her first few days were peaceful. The house was eerily quiet, but immaculately designed. Pale marble floors, black countertops, and walls that seemed to hum with silence. Each morning she'd make breakfast, dust the furniture, and tidy Lily's room. The girl barely spoke. She had her mother's eyes, dark and full of something heavy, something unsaid. By the third morning, Elena noticed the laundry machine was already running when she came downstairs. She hadn't turned it on. Neither had Mr. Danvers, who had already left for work. Curious, she checked inside once the cycle ended. The machine was filled with wet white fabric, sheets and pillowcases, perfectly clean. But as she pulled them out, she noticed faint red stains swirling in the water. "Rust," she muttered, "old pipes." But when she held the sheets to the light, the stains looked too organic. Too much like blood diluted in bleach. The pattern repeated every morning. Each day the machine finished a load before she arrived. Each time the clothes were wet but spotless. No smell of detergent, only bleach and salt. On the fourth morning, she found something different. A long strand of hair, jet black, tangled and still wet, clinging to the washer door. Her heart skipped. Mrs. Danvers, she remembered, had black hair. That evening at dinner, she finally mentioned it. "Sir, I noticed someone's using the washing machine overnight," she said. "I thought maybe it's you?" Mr. Danvers froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. "No, that machine's off limits after dark." Lily's head lifted. "Dad, it's her again." His expression hardened. "Enough, Lily." Elena blinked, uncomfortable. "Her?" The girl's voice was soft. "Mom, she does the laundry." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. The wind pressed against the windows, whispering faintly through the cracks. Around midnight, the hum began again. At first it was faint, a rhythmic rumble deep beneath the floor. Then, as minutes passed, it grew louder. The pipes creaked. The hum became a frantic churning. She sat upright in bed, holding her breath. Then she heard it, a sound beneath the mechanical rhythm, a voice. Faint, wet, distorted by the spinning drum. "Help me!" Her hands trembled. She told herself it was the pipes, the wind, anything. But the voice came again, clearer this time, desperate. "Please, help me." She clamped her hands over her ears, shaking her head. "It's just noise," she whispered. "Just noise." But the sound didn't stop until dawn. The next morning she went downstairs early before sunrise. The laundry room light was already on. The washer door was open, water pooling on the tiles. A single white nightgown lay inside, soaked, clinging to the metal drum. She lifted it gingerly and froze. Something clinked against the floor, and a gold ring. She picked it up. Inside was an engraving, worn but legible. "Forever, MD." Her breath caught, Mr. Danvers' initials. When she showed him later that morning, his reaction wasn't what she expected. He stared at the ring for a long time, jaw tight, eyes hollow. Then he said flatly, "You must have found an old trinket. My wife was cremated." Lily's spoon clattered against her bowl. "She's still here," she whispered. Mr. Danvers slammed his fist on the table. "Enough!" Elena left the room shaken. That night she dreamed of water, gallons of it filling the basement, flooding up the stairs. A woman's pale hand reached from the washer door, pounding against the glass until it cracked. She woke gasping, drenched in sweat, and below she heard the hum again. This time she went down. The laundry room door was slightly ajar, light flickering inside. The washer rocked violently, banging against the wall as though someone inside was trying to escape. She stepped closer. "Mrs. Danvers?" The machine shuddered and then stopped dead. The silence was deafening. Water dripped from the edges of the drum. Slowly, she opened the door. Inside there was nothing but wet linens. But when she touched them, her hand came away sticky with diluted blood. And beneath the folds she found another object, a small silver bracelet. Child-sized. Lily's bracelet. Elena rushed upstairs, calling for the girl. No answer. She checked the bedrooms, and empty. The beds were untouched. Then from the hallway she heard quiet sobbing. She followed the sound to the bathroom, where Lily sat curled in the corner. "She wants to go," the girl whispered, "but he won't let her." Elena knelt beside her. "Who? Mom?" "She said he did it," Lily choked. "He locked her in. He said it was an accident, but she screamed for hours. I heard her through the floor." Elena's stomach turned. "Where's your father now?" "In the basement," Lily said quietly. "He always goes there when she calls." Elena grabbed the girl's hand and crept down the stairs. The air grew colder, heavier. The sound of the washer started again, only slower this time, groaning as if it struggled to turn. They reached the door. Light flickered under the crack. Inside, Mr. Danvers knelt before the open machine, whispering into the drum. "I said I'm sorry, please stop." Then he turned, his face pale, wet and trembling. "She won't listen. She says she's not done." The washer began to shake. Water surged out, spilling across the floor. A hand, gray, bloated, pressed against the inside of the glass. Then another, and another. 3 in total, all women's hands, fingers bloodless and white. Elena screamed, dragging Lily back up the stairs. They didn't stop running until they reached the front door. But when she turned the handle, it wouldn't move. Behind her, the washing machine door burst open. Water exploded outward, flooding the hallway. And through it came the shape of a woman, soaked, hair floating around her like black seaweed, eyes wide and lifeless. "Mrs. Danvers." She looked at her husband and smiled. You left me in there." He fell to his knees, sobbing. "I'm sorry, please, I didn't mean—" She reached for him. When the water receded, neither of them were there. Only silence. Weeks later, police found the house empty. The washer was dry. No sign of the family, except for a gold ring and a damp sheet lying on the floor. The house was eventually resold. The new owners renovated it, repainting, replacing, rebuilding. But the laundry room stayed exactly the same. Every night at 11:47, the washing machine still turns on. And sometimes, if you stand in the dark and listen closely, you can hear it. A voice whispering through the drain pipe. "Please help me wash it out." Before we move on to the next story, give us your verdict on this one. And don't forget to like and subscribe. No one remembers who first locked the doors of the Whitlock estate. The house had been empty for decades, sitting at the far end of Hollow Creek, where the trees grow too close together and the mist never seems to leave the ground. But it was never really empty. Everyone in town said you could still see lights flicker behind the windows at night. Candles that no one had lit. Shadows that didn't belong to anyone. I never believed the stories, not until I took the job. My name is Marion Doyle, and I used to clean houses for a living. I wasn't afraid of much, but the day I accepted the caretaker position for the Whitlock property, something deep inside me, something instinctive and wordless, told me not to go. The ad was brief. Caretaker wanted for Whitlock estate, must live on site. Duties: cleaning, upkeep, and maintaining property order. Discretion required. It was signed only Mrs. W. The pay was generous, more than I'd ever been offered. So I convinced myself it was fine. Just another old house that needed a good scrubbing. When I first saw the Whitlock estate, it was like something out of a painting. A massive gray structure half swallowed by fog, its windows dark and hollow like eyes. The garden was dead, the fence rusted through. The trees leaned in as if trying to listen. An elderly woman opened the door. Her silver hair was pinned tightly, her black dress perfectly pressed. Her face was lined with years, but her eyes were too bright, like polished glass. "You must be Marion," she said. "I'm Mrs. Whitlock. Please come in." The air inside was thick with dust and lavender. Everything was immaculate, the furniture covered, the portraits shrouded, but there was a strange order to the neglect. Like someone had been cleaning, just very slowly, for a very long time. "I ask only that you keep things neat," she said. "You may use any room except those beyond the west corridor." She paused. Her tone changed, almost like a whisper from another person. "Don't open the door at the end of that hall, no matter what you hear." The first few nights passed without trouble. I worked quietly, polishing wood that didn't need polishing, washing windows that faced the forest. But there were little things, small, unsettling inconsistencies. Each morning, the floors were already swept. The dishes were cleaned before I reached them. And every time I walked past a mirror, there was the faintest delay, a fraction of a second where my reflection didn't follow right away. On the sixth night, I woke to the sound of someone humming, a woman's voice, soft, distant, the kind that might once have comforted a child. It drifted through the house like fog, seeping under the cracks of my door. I followed it down the hall barefoot, holding my lantern. The light trembled over the walls, revealing faded portraits and dust that looked almost like fingerprints. The humming grew clearer as I neared the west corridor. Then I heard something else, a rhythmic, steady brushing sound. When I turned the corner, my breath caught in my throat. At the far end of the hallway, a woman was kneeling on the floor, scrubbing the boards with her bare hands. Her dress was soaked, her hair clinging to her back like wet string. "Ma'am," I whispered. She froze. Slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes were cloudy, gray like ash water, and her mouth was stitched shut with black thread. I stumbled backward, but she didn't move. She only tilted her head and raised one hand, pointing to the door behind her. The West Wing door. Then she vanished. In the morning, I told Mrs. Whitlock what I'd seen. She didn't look surprised. "There was another maid here once," she said, stirring her tea slowly. "She insisted on entering the West Wing. She believed it needed cleaning." "What happened to her?" I asked. Mrs. Whitlock's eyes flicked toward the window. "She stayed." Her voice was so calm that for a moment I thought I'd misheard. "Stayed?" "She couldn't leave," she said quietly. "Some people have trouble letting go of their duties." That night I locked my door, but at 3 a.m. I heard it again, the faint brushing sound. This time it came from inside my room. I turned my lantern on. At first I didn't see anything. Then I noticed the footprints, wet, bare, leading from the door to the foot of my bed. The floor glistened faintly in the lamplight as though freshly scrubbed. When I looked toward the mirror, my reflection wasn't alone. Behind me stood the same maid, gray, motionless, her head bent forward as if listening to my heartbeat. The glass fogged over, and scrawled across it, written in dripping letters, were the words, "Clean forever." The next day, Mrs. Whitlock told me I looked tired. She insisted I rest. But that night, the humming started earlier, around midnight. I decided to end it. I took the lantern and marched toward the west corridor. The air grew colder the farther I went. Each step sounded muffled, as if the house itself didn't want to wake up. When I reached the end, I found the door slightly open. Inside, the darkness moved. I pushed the door wider and raised my lantern. The room beyond looked frozen in time, a maid's quarters perfectly preserved. The bed made, the basin full, the air thick with the scent of bleach and decay. In the center of the room sat a bucket, still half filled with gray water. A rag floated on the surface, turning slowly. The walls were covered in handprints, hundreds of them, all small, all smeared as if someone had tried to claw their way out. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind me. The light flickered, and in the reflection of the bucket's water, I saw her standing behind me again, closer now, reaching out with hands blackened and swollen. "Why won't you rest?" I screamed. The ghost tilted her head. Then, in a muffled voice through torn stitches, she whispered, "Because she never lets us." When I turned, I saw her, Mrs. Whitlock, standing in the doorway. Her face was younger now, smooth, almost glowing. "I told you not to come in here," she said. "Now she's awake." "Who?" I demanded. She smiled, a thin, cracking smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Me." Her body began to fade, but the room didn't grow emptier. It grew crowded. Dozens of figures appeared around me, all maids, all in different uniforms from different decades. Their eyes were hollow, their hands raw from scrubbing. Each one whispered the same phrase over and over. "Keep it clean! Keep it clean! Keep it clean!" The lantern burst, plunging everything into darkness. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. The house was silent, but my hands were bleeding. And the floors were spotless. The police later said they found no trace of Mrs. Whitlock. No body, no record, nothing. The property was condemned. They said I must have imagined it all. The ghosts, the humming, the mirrors. But sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still hear it. The soft scrape of a rag against the floorboards, and the faint whisper of women who can never stop working. The Whitlock estate still stands today, hidden by fog and overgrown vines. People who wander too close say they can hear humming from the upper floors. And if you look through the dusty windows, you'll see her, the last maid still polishing the glass from the inside. Her face looks calm, focused, but if you watch long enough, she looks back. They call her the Maid Who Stayed. You've just crossed the boundary between reality and the unknown. If you felt the fear tonight, make sure to subscribe before you leave, because on this channel every story is just the beginning. New nightmares arrive every few nights, each one darker than the last. Until then, keep your lights low, your doors locked, and your mind open. You are now part of the fear-bound family.